welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today's video will be on high priority targets, specifically talking about GAC Omicrons. So let's go ahead and real quick point of reference here. I'm a 7.6 million GP, so pretty mid-level. But this really applies to everybody across the board, no matter what level you're at. Obviously, some of these characters are going to be easier to get if you're a high-level player. But, you know, you guys kind of choose your path. And then once you get to the point where you can get the Omicron on these characters, load them on up. Before we get into the details of it, folks, just a quick reminder. If you like what you see today, please make sure you like, subscribe, and then turn on notifications so you don't miss any other videos that we've got. I'll have a link above for you guys to be able to check out the other SWGOH videos that I've done. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the deets here, folks. Point number one. This is not a ranking, just a real quick mention. This is just 10 of what I believe are the top 10 Omicrons. And we've got some honorable mentions at the end as well that we'll discuss. But number one that we've got right here is Darth Malgus. So Darth Malgus has 3 Omicrons, and one of them in particular is the one that I'm going to talk about as being the top, the one that you definitely need to get, and that is the Legacy of Power. Now, I am not going to read through all of the ridiculous amounts of text that are in each of these Omicrons, but I'm going to give you just kind of a snippet of what it is. Basically, this makes your team insanely fast. It adds a whole bunch of other stuff to it as well. You guys can read through the kit and see how that all works. But they will just outspeed pretty much every single team out there other than some GLs. And even then, they're going to give the GLs a run for their money too because of how fast they are. Malgus in particular. It really just takes the Sith Empire to a whole nother level. Ideally, you have a Sith Empire team that is loaded up with the relics and loaded up with health between Malak and Malgus here, and they hit so hard. They are so dangerous. It's a total game changer of an Omicron, folks. Again, takes the Sith Empire to a whole nother level. Great Omicron there. I'll kind of throw out an honorable mention for his other 2 Omicrons. I have them both. His special for Dark Deception, is one of them. It's Deprived Senses. That's right. Deprived Senses is the other special. This one is kind of mediocre from my experience, to be honest with you. Wouldn't recommend. I kind of regret that one a little bit. It's not bad. Korriban's Legacy, though, this one I don't regret getting. It's pretty decent. It allows doubt to kind of spread a lot faster. You could definitely get away with just the 1 Omicron on him, though, in my opinion. But I love Malgus. I thought he's a great character, and I want to take him up to Relic 8 eventually here. All right, moving on. Number 2 Omicron we have on our list here is Wampa. So again, I'm not going to read all the text here, folks. It's Cornered Beast. He just becomes an absolute beast when he has this Omicron. He gains so much tenacity, health, defense, offense, protection, just everything. All of the stats. He does not gain any speed. It's kind of like the opposite of the Malgus Omicron to some degree. No speed gained, but he becomes so big and so tanky and so strong that he is just going to absolutely counter teams to death. I'll say this, when you get this Omicron working and up and running, obviously one of the biggest things that you want for him is to have health because of his health protection up. The other thing that would be a little surprising, because he gets 100% tenacity, you'd be like, well, he doesn't need any tenacity then. Actually, if you really want him to work super well against some really top-tier teams, you're going to want to put a lot of tenacity on him so he can beat teams with super high potency checks. I'll show you mine right now, so you can see I have him modded for tenacity and then potency, because, again, that's kind of the stuff that he doesn't gain through that Omicron. I still have his tenacity at 148%. So that becomes 248% when he's soloing with that Omicron. And you're probably like, that's insane. Why would you need that much tenacity? Well, where we have teams where we have somebody that's at like 91, for instance, and they have it built into their kit, like Iden, to gain a whole bunch of potency on top of that, you better make sure that tenacity is through the roof, folks, or else you're going to be losing that solo that you thought you were going to win so easily. But again, this Omicron just totally changes Wampa. Becomes amazingly strong. All right, moving on to our number 3 Omicron that we have here, Zam Wessel. This is one I do not regret at all. You can check out my other video on budget teams that slap. She takes the bounty hunters to a whole nother level because of this unique. It is so good. The Omicron here is Shapeshifter. Basically, long story short, is that she will give everyone on her team a ton of speed. It's similar but different than Malgus. Malgus just gives them speed. Here you go. Merry Christmas. With Zam, it comes down to how you mod her. You really need to make sure that she is modded to have lots and lots and lots of speed. If you do that, she's going to give a portion of that speed to the rest of her team. And then it will take that team up to just incredible levels of speed and being able to move. And now, depending on the team makeout that you do with this, I run an aura lead personally. And that gets me ahead of so many teams that I can just go through and I can snipe out teams or more important players within the team, I should say. And then the whole rest of the team will fall because of that. Tremendous Omicron. There's a lot of other stat buffs and everything that you get from this as well, but really the speed is the most important thing that you get from it. All right, moving on to our number 4 Omicron we have here, Qui-Gon Jinn. This is one of the top Omicrons that are out there in the game right now, and it's for obvious reasons. You know, it's just so good. If we take a look at it here, folks, you can see that... Oh, that's the wrong one. There we go. Leadership, that's what I wanted. You can see here, again, lots of text, but basically, he gives the entire team a ton of speed, and then more importantly, they gain offense based off of their speed. Now, that's great, but where it really kicks in is the fact that when they're in GAC, nobody can die until Qui-Gon does. Once Qui-Gon dies, he gives the entire rest of the team 400% of his offense for 2 turns. It totally enables basically Jedi Knight Anakin to just nuke other teams. It is so much fun. And if you get this team really modded correctly, modded really well, it can be really dangerous. Normally, ideally, what you want Cam on the team. A Relic Cam is really ideal. Because with Cam, you'll get 60 bonus speed in total between Qui-Gon's lead and Cam's unique. And then Jedi Knight Anakin, if you get him fast enough, he'll actually go first before a lot of teams, and then he'll just one-shot the team. It's really, really cool. Even if you can't quite get it modded to that speed level for the entire team, of course, this comes into play. As soon as Qui-Gon dies, Jedi Knight Anakin goes, and unless he's stunned, which hopefully he's not, if he's not stunned, he's just going to nuke the entire team. Great, great, great Omicron. Next up, we have Savage Press. You can see mine is a Gear 12. He was only Gear 8 before this Omicron came out. And as soon as this came out, I was like, oh, I got to do this. I got to get this on here. So he's up at Gear 12 right now. It might be a little while before I get him into Relics yet. But I'm pretty excited to see what he can do here at Gear 12 first and foremost. He is just so tanky. He's essentially like the... same version of kind of like Fulcrum, where he just keeps removing stuff, and he keeps getting credited because of his unique that we've got here. Well, let's go ahead and scroll down and take a look at it. So basically, he has to be critted every single time anybody attacks him, and as soon as he's critted, he removes all of these debuffs. So he basically can't be debuffed. It's really cool. And then what happens is he just keeps stacking and stacking and stacking and stacking and stacking, and you can't hurt him. You can't kill him, and he's constantly healing. So he just becomes this tank that can't be killed. Unfortunately, he is not actually a tank. I think he works particularly well on offense because of this. He can work well on defense. But because he's not actually labeled as a tank, it really kind of limits what he can do, unfortunately, from the defensive perspective. But a great Omicron takes him to the next level. He really can hit super hard. I'd put him almost on par with Wampa in terms of how good that Omicron is in terms of a solo. Great, great, great Omicron. All right, moving into our next level. Again, these aren't necessarily ranked. You can see that for me personally, these are probably the bigger 5 that I have. But man, some of these Omicrons hit so hard when you get the teams up and running like you should. So let's go ahead and take a look at Dash Rendar. So for him, he has under his leadership. This is if an ally loses prepared, they gain prepared. So basically, they always have prepared. It just really takes this team up a whole nother notch. The idea being, obviously, folks, that Vandor constantly has prepared. So no matter how many times you kill somebody else, Vandor will just always revive them. It makes this a very, very tough team on defense, in my opinion. Can be used very well on offense as well, depending on how you set the team up, especially if you put Han and Chewie on here. But really, really a great team under Dash's lead. Obviously, the Datacron that's out right now helps significantly with this as well. I unfortunately don't have that because I only have a Gear 11 Dash at the moment. But really takes this team up to a next level. Dash himself as a character is really good too. Don't downplay him, folks. Get him as soon as you can. You can see I'm getting there. Almost there, folks. Next up, we've got Iden Versio. This is probably one of my favorite Omicrons. It's just such a good Omicron. It makes the whole team just really ridiculously good. Whoops, wrong one. So, in Grand Arena, basically, she is just a stat-boosting crazy person. Again, you can read through all the details of it, but she just gives her entire team a ridiculous amount of stats. Probably the most important thing with her, though, with this Omicron, is that anytime somebody attacks out of turn, they are gaining back a ton of protection and a ton of health. That eliminates so many teams that will attack out of turn to be able to attack them and beat them, especially when you get them at high levels. Mine, unfortunately, is not at a super high level. Like I said, we're still working on her, getting her up to 7 stars so I can take her up into relics, which I will be doing as soon as possible. But she takes all of these junk troopers that you've never used before and makes them otherworldly good. Can't recommend her Omicron enough. She was one I jumped on day one. As soon as it came out and I read about it, I was like, I gotta have that Omicron. It's amazing. Next up, probably the one that I wish I had the most, is Starkiller. And he does have a couple of Omicrons. He's like Malgus. But the big one for him is his unique. So Malgus's was his leadership. Starkiller's is his unique. There is much conflict in you. And you can see, it's like an Encyclopedia Britannica for those of you older folks. There's so much here. I'm not going to read all of this, folks. Long story short, basically this unique is what makes the Starkiller team run. If you don't have this Omicron, it will not work. It will not function like it is. It's not basically a Galactic Legend type level team without this Omicron. When you get Starkiller, get this as soon as possible. You can see I'm getting real close on my Dash. I'm working on some of my other guys at the moment as well. They're a priority for me right now, trying to get some of these lower level players up and getting Starkiller ready to go here as soon as possible, because I can't wait to get him. He's so cool. The Omicron is so good. Get it yesterday, folks. Really great Omicron. First Order TIE Pilot. This is a really nice Omicron. You can see I don't have it. I don't have my First Order up. It will be one of the ones I get once my First Order is up and running. Long story short, everybody gains a ton of speed, a ton of tenacity, and then a ton of foresight. Those are the big things. There's a lot of other stuff there too. You can see that you can read all through it. Lots and lots and lots of stuff that they get from it. Another basically massive stat boost for your team. One of the things that's so good about this, though, is that it really gives your team a lot of control on the field. It doesn't work as well on defense. I've faced teams with this Omicron on defense, and it's not that difficult to beat. But because of how effective this is on offense, you can really take out a lot of pretty good teams if you're using this on the offensive standpoint. So add this if you have First Order at all leveled up pretty well. Like I probably should. I have Gear 12 First Order. I know it's not ideal, but I'm sure I could use them at my level as a 7.6 mil player. If I gave him this Omicron and got him up to Gear 12, I could throw him in on one of my First Order teams, and they'd be a very effective team and be able to beat a lot of stuff on offense. Get this, guys. If you have Slicker, though, get this immediately. Great Omicron. Next up on my list, I was really torn on the last 4 that we'll talk about here. So Asajj, I have a decent Night Sister team, so that's one of the reasons I gave mine to Asajj. The last 3 that we have here, I do not have super great teams of, so I didn't give it to them. That might be different if I had amazing Ewoks. I would probably give my Omega to Chief Chirpa instead of Asajj. Me personally, though, since my Night Sisters are pretty good, I went with Asajj. In my opinion, this doesn't necessarily give you an ability to beat teams that you couldn't beat before, but it does give you the ability to reclaim some banners through gaining protection back. And it also just makes this team a little bit tougher on defense if you put them on defense. Depending on what level you're at, you might have them on offense, you might have them on defense. Kind of depends on where you are in the game. I used to use them exclusively on offense. I'm now putting them back on defense again because I'm finding I need some stronger teams for offense. But again, it depends on you and where you're at in terms of your playing style. Either way, it's a very good Omicron. You guys will not you will not regret adding this Omicron. There we go. At all in the slightest. Like I said, now we're going to go ahead and move on to our honorable mentions here, folks. So we have Chief Chirpa. Chief Chirpa is actually one of the most used Omicrons in SWGOH, believe it or not. I'm guessing it's just because a lot of people have them because of the requirement to get Chewy. Me personally, I mean, mine are mostly Gear 11. I don't ever use them. I know that they can kind of be a sneaky team on defense. You put this Omicron on there, and suddenly they become a lot better than what they were before. They can hit a lot harder than they used to. But I don't see the value personally unless you really have some pretty strong Ewoks. I don't, so I don't have it on there. If you've got Relic Ewoks, though, put this on immediately because it really does make a big difference. Everybody gets an increase in speed. The biggest thing, though, is the increase in basic damage. You guys know, if you know the Ewok kits at all, you know that there are basics all over the place. And if those basics suddenly start hitting a lot harder than they used to, this team becomes much, much, much more difficult to deal with, especially with the chance for Ewoks to be called to assist being added on as well. Really good Omega, or I keep saying Omega, really good Omicron. If you've got Ewoks, folks, get that on there. The last two are kind of a pair, in my opinion. They're not used a ton right now, but I would not get an Omicron for either of these characters unless you were going to get both of the Omicrons for these characters. So the Akbar lead, in particular here, basically just constantly gives buffs and constantly gives turn meter because of those buffs. Anytime they expire, they constantly gain turn meter. That in conjunction with Leia, basically being able to constantly give people retribution, and then more importantly, give everybody tenacity up. All of those buffs constantly coming up, healing through those buffs with Leia's Omicron, and then constantly feeding turn meter because of Akbar's Omicron really makes this team hit up a lot harder than what they used to before. All right, folks, that'll pretty much wrap us up here for today. Again, you can see all of the different Omicrons we have. If you agreed with what I put down, leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. If you disagree, if you think I missed something, do the same thing. Let me know how you thought I did here, guys. Last but not least, I'll have cards to some of my other SWGOH videos that you guys can check out at the end of the video here. With that being said, though, folks, catch you next time.